She walked into a cemetery and fell in love, and became interested in things like who carved this and how can we find out. And there's a map over there on that table which has little dots on it for cemeteries that she has visited, and I think it's fair to say you've got a favorite carver. Is that right? Well, you're going to tell us about that. So lots of books and pictures and so forth. She says she just is a Cortland native who just happens to have a cemetery gene. All this sprung from that. And Mary, it's good to have you with us, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. They've asked me to use this. Can you hear me? I have never had I've never been introduced by a banner outside. I saw my name on the board coming in. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask that if you have a question while I'm talking, please raise your hand and I'll try to address that question at the time the slide is up. We'll try to answer them then. And I have a special presentation at the end that involves you people in the town of Fabius. This particular face showed up during my research, which went on for 23 years to begin with, and then has progressed since then. When I look at this face, I see a mask. And it's the multi-lines that go around the eyes that kind of, so we've used it, we've called him a mask-eyed carver. This up. As I get older, I hate shoes. I get two pictures instead of one. In 1975, I was doing a Cortland County cemetery survey to see what was out there, and I walked into the Texas Valley Cemetery, down here in the southeast corner of Portland. And I saw that stone. I saw the large heart at the top, went over to read the stone, admired the lettering, and my eyes dropped to the base of the stone, and I saw two coffins standing on end. I walked around the cemetery, and while I was there, found another 14 stones by this carver, and it just ran across my head. I wondered who he was. The date on this stone is 1819. I continued to work in the Texas Valley Cemetery, then at the Cortland Historical Society, looking for a reference to who this stone carver might be, since he had so many stones in Texas Valley. I was sure he must be from Cortland County or Texas Valley. That did not turn out to be true. Just for the word, the tops of gravestones are called tympanums. Sorry for that, tympanum. And while I was looking for his stones in cemeteries around Texas Valley, most of them had these odd, abstract urns. And that continued. I was living in North Carolina, and so I just did this in the summer. And for several summers, I continued to have abstract urns in the tops of the gravestones and the vertical coffins at the base. Now, to identify a gravestone carvers work, you look at their lettering, not their tympanum images. You look at the lettering. Gravestone carver engraves letters, and he comes out as different from other gravestone carvers, as your handwriting is different from mine. So once you identify certain items in the lettering, that's how you continue to gather an inventory. Let me point out. He used here lies. In 1815, here lies is a very archaic form. Most carvers were using in memory art. So this is a throwback. A little 45-degree angle foot on the line is very telling. He's the only carver in the area that was doing that. This is an ampersand. It's what I call the U-shaped ampersand, as opposed to the cleft ampersand that most carvers were using. He tended to use a rolled D at the end of die. His 5 had what I call comet hat, hat. He used the letters AET, which is an abbreviation for a Latin word, AETATIS, aetatis, which means at the age of. And on most of his stones, but not all, he put in the year, month, and day for the deceased. Way ahead of myself here. Okay, by the way, can you help me here? Well, I did jump forward. I just tried to back up. Well, I thought I disappeared. Can you use the forward and backward arrows? No. That's where I got into it. Start over. Just go to the screen. Well, I can get it. This is going on. There you go. Okay. Sorry, you just use that arrow key one at a time. Okay. Thank you very much. I continued to look throughout Portland, Shenango, and Broome County for this particular carver. And while I was doing it, I did gravestone rubbings and had ended up with quite a collection. 3 or 4 years into my research, I was in Seattle County, and I went to the top of the hill at Decatur. And this stone came to my attention. I thought, wow, I wonder who carved that. Isn't that strange for Central New York? But within that same summer, I found in Deposit and in Windsor half moons with the 7 stars of the Pleiades. And when I saw that image there, I remembered the 2 faces in Decatur, and now I was looking at Coffin Man's lettering and work. He was still doing mostly abstract urns. I'll call your attention to the scribbling on behind this urn. It's called Walking the Chisel by stone carvers. They set a chisel, hit one end, move the chisel to the other point, hit it back and forth. It gives a very nice design. Occasionally, more faces showed up, that one in Sydney, but only about every 20 to 25 stones. Most of the stones were very simple, plain, as is the one here on the right in Coventryville, New York. In 1819, General Henry Bloom of Lansing in Tompkins County died, and his executor, Mr. Green, contacted our coffin man in Coventryville in southern Shenango County to come and do a gravestone for General Bloom. So our carver coffin man made one trip over into Tompkins County. He left 7 stones in Ithaca, 4 at the top of the hill on King's Cemetery, 2 in Ludlowville, and this particular one in Asbury Cemetery. I think I would comment there that Coffin Man is operating a wagon. How many horses? I have no idea. Carrying a load of stone required a considerable number, I would think. And he was using what were called turnpike roads, which actually they dirt clearings through forest, lots of potholes.
What kind of stone?
He was using sandstone. There was a quarry just down the road from where he lived in Coventryville. Most everything below Route 80 south is sandstone of varying quality and varying colors. And once we get north of here, we run into the limestone and marble. Now, this is going on for 23 years of my life, my son's anyway, continuing to look for the inventory for this carver. Base showed up way down in Pennsylvania. We see an adult and a child coffin on the bottom of one stone, 4 small coffins, or 4 children on the other. In the 23 years that I looked for Coffin Man's name, this is the territory that I covered. Pretty much from over near Cooperstown to Ithaca, from above Portland all the way down into Hartford, Pennsylvania. The center of that area turns out to be Coventryville. Just happens to be where our carver is from. But I still didn't have a name. There are at least 3 ways you can identify a stone carver. Someone in a history book can tell you who he was. Someone, he can have carved his name into the stone. Or you can find an adult male who has a probate file at the county probate office. And if you're really, really lucky, you find a payment and a name. Now, I found 6 payments with no name until that stone, strangely enough, this was just, it raised the hair on the back of my neck. This stone was in the Coventryville Cemetery. I had been going through past that cemetery for almost my entire 23 years of this search. This stone was laying face down. In 1998, when I was getting ready to put this project on the shelf, I stopped at the cemetery and it had been cleaned up. And this stone had been stood up. I used a stick, never use anything metal on a gravestone. I used a wooden stick and cleaned out the inscription. And the heart at the bottom of the stone, instead of a vertical coffin, made me think of the heart at the top of that other stone 23 years prior. Simon Jones died in 1817, took the information, and went to Norwich to the probate office. It was one of those things you just have a feel for. I went up those stairs 2 at a time to the probate office. Opened up Simon Jones probate. It was very fat probate, had lots of paperwork in it. You can see here, these are some of the people they paid, although it doesn't tell you what they paid for. But in a bundle of receipts, I opened up this scrap of paper, and it says, received of Simeon Parker, $5 for a pair of gravestones for Simon Jones, June 1818, signed J.W. Stewart. My coffin man, after 23 years, finally had a name. It was thrilling to have it. I had looked for those 23 years, and yet the minute I had the name, it left me kind of, I wonder what I'll do next summer. Well, I found out. The payment to Mr. Stewart had been made in 1818, and so I went to the 1820 census for Coventry, and he's the 6th name. He was listed. There are 15 manufacturers in the town of Coventry. He's one of those. Didn't say what he manufactured, but he is one of those manufacturers. And the name above is Burridge Miles, and Burridge Miles had built this hotel in 1810. And since Stewart was that close to Miles Hotel, and Mr. Stewart has no record of a property dealing in any county in South Central New York, I'm assuming he lived at the hotel. So I had his name. Who was J.W. Stewart? He didn't own the property. And his inventory of gravestones continued. This odd piece here has a little story of its own. You can't go out and do research and just limit everything. Stories pop up, wonderful stories. This is only partly wonderful. The stone on the left is Eleanor Foster, wife of Nathan. She was poisoned, and he was hung for poisoning her. Her gravestone is in the Masonville Cemetery, and his is 2 miles down the road in the barn foundation. I pulled the trial. It's in a book. I got a copy of it from Albany, and it talked about him as his neighbors thought him a traitor, a spy, besides killing his wife. I was in school in North Carolina at the time, in my old age, and I was working on a paper for Portland County Carbers. And I pulled some books from the library for a bibliography. And this was one of those books. It's just rubbings of New England stones by a man named Edward Gillen. Most of them don't even tell you where they are. He was just wanted to show off and apparently had the money to publish his own book. He didn't have to put it, but if you look there on the right left, is coffin name. There's J.W. Stewart right here in this picture. So, where is that stone? The stone is for Deacon Ebenezer Dewey, who died in 1794. Lucky for us, the 1790 census had been done. So I went to the 1790 census and I found there were 2 Ebenezer Deweys in all of New England in 1790, and they both lived in the town of Royalton, Vermont. So, I have a stone now in Vermont. Didn't take me long to get there either. In the Dewey Cemetery were coffins with faces in them. And that very same summer, a friend of mine in Ithaca pointed out this particular stone in Old Ithaca East, again with the small face. I was working in Vermont, up and down the White River, working both sides of the river cemeteries, looking at J.W. Stewart's work. And I'll just kind of skip ahead here and show you where Stewart's images came from. Stone in Royalton, Vermont, Harper Cemetery here in New York State, Hartford, Pennsylvania, Newport, New Hampshire, town of Sharon in Vermont, town of Greene, Barnes Cemetery, Shenango County. Bowie Austin is in Tunbridge, Vermont. Look at the detail on that, and then look to your right and look at the detail of this stone that stands in the King Cemetery in Tompkins County, just outside of Ithaca. Everybody wants to know, what is that? Well, it may be a palm willow, but whatever it is, it's in West Claremont, New Hampshire too.
These are all sandstone?
The ones in Vermont and New Hampshire are slate, and the ones in New York and Pennsylvania are sandstone. Woodstock, Vermont, Deposit, New York. Now we know where J.W. Stewart got his images. He had a little book with him that he took a pencil and kept these images, and then like once every 25 stones put something special on them. This is the area I found him in New England. About 1811 or 12, went down into South Central New York, and at times repeated those. Here's Coventryville. This is Burridge Miles Hotel. This is a turnpike intersection. This is the cemetery where the stone was found. It was Mr. Jones's stone in here. This is how close the sandstone quarry was to where he lived and worked. In 1998, the same year, everything started coming together. The people at the Shenango County Historical Society had reason to go through some court records. And because they had worked with me in trying to identify this carver, when they unrolled this audit form, they knew I would be interested. We now know who J.W. Stewart is. His name is Jonas W. Stewart. And the river is, New Hampshire and Vermont are on either side of the Connecticut River. Most of the blue dots that you see here are Jonas W. Stewart's brother. And the orange dots down here mostly are his father, Jonas Stewart. Jonas Stewart Sr. Was well known. This project went on I mean, I'm talking 35 years of my life in your getting. I'm trying to do the short version. In Claremont, in the town proprietor's records, I found this record for the family of Jonas Stewart and his wife, Mary Grimes, and his 10 children with their birthdays. Jonas Stewart's second, with this birthday, fits very nicely into the 1820 census that's in Shenango County. He had a brother that was 2 years older, and his father also carved. James Stewart was identified by a probate payment. He never signed a stone. As you can see here, the letter for the brother isn't really like J.W.'s. You can see the differences here. And some of the templates have different items. James Stewart is fun. Loved going to a cemetery and find his work.
Was there ever any one stone in all of that time that was either sandstone or slate that was signed by anybody for any reason at any time?
One. I'll speak to it in a minute. These are all James Stewart, brother. Twins in a coffin. Again, the mask eye face kept showing up. About 1800, 1799, 1800, the tympanums in gravestones went from winged faces to classical urn and willow. The Stewarts had trouble with the urns. They didn't really know. I have probably 25 of these stones that they look like hot air balloons or rockets on the pad before they got the hang of it in about 1802. James, like I said, is fun to do. Here we've got a Revolutionary War soldier with a tri-corner hat, a feather, and an urn. He did 3 different types of urns, and he put an urn at the bottom of each one, so the customer would know what he was getting. This was quite a find. James Stewart could handle the chisel. His perspective wasn't good all the time, but I was watching Antiques Roadshow from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and a woman came up with a framed piece of textile. And in the frame was this image. It's called Tears of America, and it was produced after George Washington died. That was the focus. We have liberty and justice on either side of the urn. And James Stewart took that image and put it on the top of that gravestone in Chestnut, Vermont. And if you look at how the arms and the hands are held, it's just really a remarkable display. Now we want to go back up and look at Jonas, the father. This is what his early work looked like. I call it a nice pumpkin head inside a 3/4 halo. He picked the design up from William Park, who has the head in a 3/4 halo and a lot of beautiful flowers carved in deep relief, which are striking. Jonas Stewart didn't have the talent, and his are pretty two-dimensional. But he carried on. In fact, he carried on for 50 years, carving stone. And again, we look at the lettering and why it's different from his sons. Both sons had different lettering in this. But if you're in New Hampshire and Vermont, and you're looking at a stone across 50 years, and you wonder who carved it, look at the word year. very odd placement for the Y. It's sitting down on the line with one single strike below. And he did it 99.9% of the time. Very helpful research. As he carved, they got better. At one point, he was invited to Dorset, Vermont to carve some marble. They had just opened a quarry up there. And eventually, he took the head out of the halo, put wings under it, lifted it up off the line. He's also brought the bottom line from under the eye over to the edge of the cheek, which gives you even more of a mask. And he really got quite good. If you're looking, you're in New Hampshire, Vermont. These are really fun to find. Now, you asked about a sign stone. There are researchers who say that that stone with the cursive lettering, which does not look like Jonas Stewart's lettering or his urns at the top, but they say this entire stone, which has J. Stewart at the bottom, was signed by Jonas Stewart. I don't think it was. The proprietor's records where we looked at his family listing, it was all S-T-U-A-R-T. Whoever provided the town with the spelling of the name was S-T-U-A-R-T. When his son died, Jonas carved the stone S-T-U-A-R-T. I don't think Jonas Stewart, if he was signing this stone, would have spelled his name a way that he didn't approve of or didn't want to use. So I'm not really sure. I think it's probably someone in the shop. That's the only signed stone. He carved until 1823. This is an 1822 stone. So he carved 50 years. Now, who was that masked man? He was a Stewart. Jonas Sr., James Grimes, and J.W. the Second. That's the only thing they share is the mask and eye treatment. This is obviously central New York and Pennsylvania. The green dots are the cemeteries where I worked in to gather an inventory for Coffin Man, eventually J.W. Stewart II. But there were two other carvers, actually three, that were working with him at the same time, some in the same cemetery, and then they branched off. The blue, our eclectic man, I'll show you this. The red, our open urn man. The yellow, our comma man. I'll just show you one slide for each of them. They were working at about the same time, and as you can see, they crossed his territory. This is eclectic man, did wonderful flying winged angels, and a woman weeping in the tomb. I have a good friend who loves to put these in glass. I'm sorry to tell you, this stone has been broken and is gone. I don't have any idea where it went. This is Open Urn Man. He did these wonderful big urns at the top of big stones. And they are here. When I was doing my research, I was doing this. And this year, my niece joined in the search using Find a Grave. And she has found open urn stones down here to Towanda, Wyalusing, Wyoming. So we've got her, we're going to be traveling out to see what else he did and how long he carved. This is Comma Man. Couldn't do lettering very well. And he also used another archaic form. He put commas between words, word separations, It is an archaic form, comes out of very early gravestone carving. So I have no idea where he's from or why he happened to use that form. Basically, that's how the story got me in and kept my attention for 33 years. I want to give you something. Can you see these? This is your carver, and we don't know what his name is. This is Sunburst Man. I named him. Some of his tympanums look like this, others like that. None of them are the same. No of these stones that we have in a very small inventory is the same as any other stone. I did find out most of the stones are in the Keeney Valley Cemetery. In doing some research, someone looked at my pictures and said, that's the Canaan Carver in Litchfield County, Connecticut. So I went over here to Litchfield County, and sure enough, this face here are in Canaan and Sharon and Baldwin Hill Cemetery here in Litchfield County, Connecticut. And that carver moved over here, the top corner of Portland County, and as we all know, it's the town of Fabius Cemetery, not Portland County Cemetery. The stones started to show up in the 1802 and 3. That interior face is in Connecticut, and now it's in Sunburst. It's now in Keeney Settlement. There are no more of these stones and vases in Litchfield. That carver has moved here. It's since natives. Now, I was somewhat entertained by the stone on the right. To the memory of S.F.P., son to James and Lucy Pettit, who died in 1812. Look at the brief epitaph. 17 hours, he lived, groaned, expired. That's personal. That's a very personal, deep sentiment to find on a gravestone. The other stones by this carver have known epitaphs that are used over and over. This one is different.
The first
There it is right there. The stone next to him, I'm sorry I don't have a picture of it. The stone next to him at the top of the hill, these are the last two stones at the top of the hill cemetery, is for his sister. He died in April, she died in August, same year. She's 6 years old. He's very, she's 6 years old, and her epitaph reads, she's gone. And to my frenzied mind rushed wild impatience, doubt, distrust. Religion whispered, be resigned. Take thy idle hence as just. I don't you know, that's another terribly, I've gone through all kinds of literary encyclopedias looking, it's bits and pieces out of Corinthians. The Father James was a deacon in the Baptist church. These few pictures are the ones that are over in Litchfield County. There it Now, did a little bit of looking. I thought James Pettit is probably a carver. What do you think? I think he might be carving stones for his children. So go and look up James Pettit. I don't know what we do without Find a Grave and Ancestry.com and all those things that we used to spend years of our life doing research, and now we can go click, it's all that are laid out. James, I guess it is. SFP. F is for felt, P is for Pettit. Lucy's maiden name was Felt. James and Lucy Pettit moved here from Litchfield County, Connecticut. They moved to town of Fabius. They were there in 1810, 1820. They were in Pompey in 1830, and then they moved to Fredonia. These two children are the two of theirs that are still in the Keeney Valley settlement. But Find a Grave, somebody worked up a really big history. I have pictures of James Pettit's son from, I think it's on Find a Grave. But James Pettit is all adopted. He had an eye salve. He had other homeopathic medicine types of things. He had a stone carver? Probably not, but then I don't know how his descendants see him. So I am going to leave this information with you. I first speculated that James Pettit was responsible for those two children's gravestones because they're so personal. He migrated into Keeney settlement from Litchfield County, which is where those gravestones come from. He's listed in 1820 in Vegas. The genealogy items on Ancestry report several of his children. Sunburst man carver put stones in the Keeney settlement between 1808 and 1823. Pettit's gone, the stones stopped. Find a Grave has turned my theory on its head. He probably wasn't the carver, but he certainly knew the carver and asked for those special stones with those special epitaphs. Thank you very much.
Well, very interesting. Will you take just a few questions?
If anybody has any more, I'll be glad to answer them. I'm not totally prepared to answer cleaning lichen off stones. I'm a member of the Association for Gravestone Studies. Yes, Virginia, there is an Association for Gravestone Studies. They're online, you can find them, and they have publications that are updated pretty regularly as things come along that are better than they were using 5 years ago. At any technique, never do anything to a gravestone that can't be undone. If something better doesn't come along, even if it's just piling the pieces up or burying them in the ground and leaving a marker there. The very best way to retain a gravestone image is through photography. I'd be more than happy some Saturday morning to bring, I have a wonderful mirror thing that shoots. What you do is you take the sun, bring it off the mirror, and throw it back across the gravestone that's dark on the front, lights up. Get your picture will last. Let's see. Lichens off stones, depends on the lichen, depends on the stone, what type of stone it is. They grow better in marble because, and the acid rain has really jumped all over those. Probably because the calcium pieces have a matrix around them that holds them, and acid rain washes the matrix away, and eventually a little piece of calcium falls off. So your marbles in your cemeteries look like they're melting. if you put bleach, any of the harsh cleaners on, it will be absorbed into the matrix of the marble. It will even be absorbed into the sandstone. Sandstone really is quite porous. It looks like better stone. It didn't back when they came up with marble. They thought marble was going to be the best thing going. But time has changed everything around. I would, lichens, depends. They're the tight little yellow ones. They're the big blue, green flower things that look like. If you're going to, if you have a sandstone and you want to clean some of that off, especially with glue, water. Start with water. It will do it no harm. Pre-wet it. Pre-wet all the areas you want to do, and then go back and wet it again, and take maybe a wooden paint stick, and lift it right off. But there are some lichens, those yellow ones that get into the veins and things. There's something new on the market called D2. It's expensive. It can be mixed with water, and I'm just beginning to use a little of it. It is online too, D2, and it will come up on the Association for Gravestone Studies. Take the best photographs. As I mentioned, the best thing is to get most gravestones face west. So you want morning sun until about 1:30. By then the sun has come over and is now raking down in front of the stone, and you can take pictures then. But before then, you can just take all that morning sun and realign it across the front of the stone and take pictures. Those are where your best pictures come from. You can do it even on marble that isn't very deeply carved. And as you get really sharp with pushing this light back across the front of the stone, you'll see it'll come up where you can take a picture of it.
Can you suggest to them that the mirror that you could be using are the ones that the girls hang on the back of the bathroom or bedroom door?
Yeah,
The long, narrow mirror?
you have to use
Some of them are probably aluminum, some are glass, so you're gonna bend it a little bit to make the sun hit it, but don't bend it too much or it's gonna blow poof, and you're not gonna have
Yeah,
it.
the mirror needs to be as tall as the stone. If you're using a little mirror, that's all you're gonna get light across the stone. So that's okay if you're in there and you just wanna put it along the side, read it like that, read the stone and make the thing. But if you
Take a
wanna take
second
a
person,
picture
take
of
the
the
whole
whole
mirror,
stone,
you can do the picture.
especially in King Settlement, get one of those Home Depot, $7.95. Buy two. They have a tendency to fall over and get knocked in there. But, and
Question.
doing rubbings.
Mary?
I was going to ask, since this is a room full of people who look at gravestones, aside from the head in the Keeney Settlement Cemetery, has anybody seen that type of gravestone in any other Onondaga County cemetery?
Couple in Truxton, couple in Tyler,
Yeah, those aren't Onondaga
couple
County.
in Madison County.
Where in Madison?
It's just up past the right or someplace,
Oh,
just up past, yeah, right down in the corner.
okay.
When we were in during Oakwood, section 48, there were a few heads.
There
From
were,
where?
Yes,
Were they
wait a
sandstone?
minute, in Oakwood,
cemetery, section 48.
Syracuse?
Yes,
But that was founded in 150 years ago.
I can't remember,
Yeah.
there was
Oh,
a few heads in there.
They got around,
I don't know.
I was standing, I was out with a friend I went to high school with, and we were just doing cemeteries up in the town of Paris, up above above Route 20. And I was in the town of Paris, and we were all done. 5 cemeteries I was whipped in. So we stopped at this last one, and I got out one side, and she got out the other, and she went, and I walked over here, and I'm going, what is J.W. Stewart II doing with a stone up here in the town of Paris?
There's always a chance the family can move the stone from where the person's buried to where the rest of the family is someplace. They have to have been put there originally.
There's one in Randallsville. They're scattered around. Families did that, and that's what's the lot number again?
48 in Oakwood.
48 in Oakwood. Okay.
Yeah, it's a big section.
Another day trip.
It's 3 Saturdays then.
You know, this Carver doesn't have a lot, so you're gonna need to go through somebody in Canaan, Connecticut, or Sharon, came with this Pettit family. If it isn't the Pettit family who's carving them, now, let me say this, James Pettit, Dr. James Pettit, father was Jonathan Pettit, born in Sharon, Connecticut, died in Cazenovia in 1833, after these stones had gone finished. Maybe he carved. Would he have carved something like that for his grandchildren? Sure. You know, look at the family names in Litchfield County that are tight with the Pettits that you know came here. And see if you can't shake the tree hard enough to find somebody who will either tell you or own up to or a probate. I mean, one of my talks is called, "It Only Takes One Stone." It only takes one stone with a probate that names the carver. If in 1975, when I started my project, if I had gone to Coventryville and that stone had been standing there and I read it, and gone to Norwich, and I said, no, that was easy, J.W. Stewart. Problem was, I didn't find it for 23 years. It's finding a stone for an adult male who has probate, paid a carver that was named, but still, find the one stone.
Is that one stone it's in Hamilton?
Yeah.
Off the main street behind the hotel, there's a cemetery.
Oh,
There's one stone that has this type
yes,
of
and
top.
yes, and
Isolated by itself, I think, years ago, I saw it.
Yes, you're right, you're right.
I think
There is a
that's,
cemetery.
There's
doing
one
rubbings,
stone.
don't waste your time with marble. The rubbing that you get on marble hits all the high spot dots. It doesn't give you any clarity. If you're going to rub sandstone, make sure you tap on it. Tap on it to make sure, especially now, that sandstone is in layers. It's blocked out. They cut it like that, and it's still in layers. And moisture gets in here, freezes every year, and they slip a little bit farther, eventually the face falls off. It depends on how deep they were carved into and whether that moisture is coming down and bleeding out through the inscription. But sandstone can be rubbed if it's a good solid stone. Use hemp paper, rice, something lightweight, and there are several online places that have English rubbing wax, not lumberman's crayon, and not on a hot day, because the heat from the stone will make it really hard to deal with on your. It's a nice fall afternoon, something for rubbing, and they can be rubbed. Something new that came out a couple of years ago is taking foil. I can't tell you what the weight here is. You remember the one that was done in glass? The woman at the tomb. This is it's foil, and we have again the two children that are over in Watrous. This stone here is broken in 7 pieces, and it moved around the cemetery. It moved around the town in a box for quite a while. And then someone actually called me and said, "You have pictures of that stone, where is it?" I said, "I don't have a clue. Last time I saw it was in the lilac tree." Well, the lilac tree was gone, and so was the stone, and people couldn't find it. Well, the pieces finally showed up, and in Harper, at their historical society, they have put down 2 replacement markers, one for each of the children, their name and their date. And they have picked up the 7 pieces of stone and put them in a lovely wooden shadow box. with a light at the bottom that shows right up the stone, and they are keeping it at the Historical Society. Sandstone breaks pretty easily. Once they're down flat, you run over them with a tractor or you can really step on some of them and break them in any number of pieces. It's, if there's something else I can pull out of the air here. Association for Gravestone Studies has and continually updates what's going on in gravestones. Epitaphs, wonderful publications on epitaphs. They just make, just really fun reasons for going into cemeteries. And I have to say here, do any of your friends know you're here tonight talking about gravestones? People come in, I find people in cemeteries go, I didn't know anybody who was interested in this except me. Yes, there are many of you out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've got some great refreshments over here, folks, so stay around and enjoy.